Hi, welcome to the Capital Coffee Connection podcast. I'm Liz, and we are having today a virtual coffee. My guest is a young woman who is a leader. Now, many times we really are focusing on diverse political leaders. But one of the things that I have come to see is that we have leaders that are really young in our country. And I wanted to give this opportunity for people to get to know one of these exceptional young people who I believe is a future leader for so many others, but is already a leader for young people. So as a way of introducing Noa, I was talking with some people the other day, and they were saying, oh, our young people these days, they're just not doing anything. They just don't know anything. And I was like, who are you talking about? And I had recently heard Noa Oranim speak at an event, and I was just blown away. I don't think at 18 I had nearly half of her confidence or her talent. So, as a way of introducing her, I know her through the school that she graduated from, Oakwood School in California, and where my kids went as well, and I went. So feels very personal, and yet I really am excited for people to get to know who you are, Noa, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a very flattering introduction. I don't know if I can get you as my personal hype woman just in general, but
We'll work with it. We'll work on it.
Perfect. I think it's interesting, the whole young people aren't doing anything. I think that honestly, like just this past year, I think has been so instrumental for showing me that that's like not the case. Because I think that just in general, people are like, there's like a loneliness epidemic and like everyone feels super isolated. And just as I was going through the college system last year, and I had the privilege of like going to I went to go look at like Harvard and Yale and Caltech and Stanford and all of these different places. It was really incredible just to meet all of the other like admits and to sort of be surrounded by a bunch of young people who want to do things and who have already done like crazy things. Like I met this one girl and I was talking to, and she's like the most humble person ever. And then I found out that she started like a literacy foundation to like teach kids in like impoverished communities, like better media literacy skills and like all of these things. So I think that it's like, I'm sure that there's some truth to it because there's some truth in every sort of big splashy like generalization that people make. But there's also a lot of people who are very passionate and driven in doing things.
Well, I believe that, and you're one of them, and we're going to get to know you today. And we'll keep talking to young people because that is an area that I am very passionate about, is also seeing how young people will, continue to grow and become leaders in bigger and better ways. So let's just start with where you live and a little bit about your family. I know you have some siblings. Tell us a little bit about them.
I was born and raised in LA, which I think, honestly, I'm a very big LA fan, just in general. People are like, seems like a really like weird kind of place to grow up just because there's so much going on. I think I wouldn't have gotten into science if it wasn't for LA, just because there's so many weird niche things that are going on that no matter what you're interested in, you can find something. I'm the oldest out of 4. So I have a younger sister who's a junior at Oakwood now. She's on that like grind, And then I have 2 younger brothers that are twins in 5th grade at Oakwood as well. And then, of course, I have my parents who are great and definitely huge role models for me. My mom's name is Sharon. My dad's name is Guy. And they're both just wonderful.
Talk a little bit about who you are, because you're a student and you're off Stanford University and you're an evolutionary biologist. You have spoken at conferences. And I would just like to know, where did that passion come from?
I was talking to my friend actually the other day because she was talking to me about how she kind of felt like she didn't have a direction in the way that I did. And she was like, I want to find what science is for you. And I think that the huge thing that I want to kind of say as far as like finding your passion and like what you're interested in is that like you can't put a lot of pressure on yourself to find that thing. Like I think that there's this growing consensus that there's this like you're supposed to find this thing that you're meant to do, and then you go all in and you pursue it, and that's like your path. And I think that also just the college system, a lot of times when you're writing those applications, it feels like that. I know it felt for me in the process kind of like I was storyboarding my life, sort of like a character arc, if you will. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm human, But I think that the big thing for me and the way that I got into this is you have to approach everything with curiosity, not like this is going to be my thing. Kind of could this be something that I'm potentially interested in? Because I think that passion is forged. I think that there's very few cases where you come into something and you immediately know that this is going to be like the thing that you do. I know for me personally, like I was torn between going into STEM and like creative writing because I really enjoy like writing poetry. And those are two vastly like different kind of things. But it's I wouldn't have ever thought to pursue one or the other if I didn't kind of approach everything with inquisitiveness and then just sort of prime myself to potentially become passionate about a specific thing. And I'm seeing this even now within like biology, which I'm already passionate about, as I kind of move from like evolutionary focuses to more like computational focuses and like biomedical engineering focuses. And then even within that, there's like so much to explore. And I think like the big thing for me as well is like this is something that I really, really enjoy. But like I don't know if this is going to be what I do with my life as a whole. And especially as you go on to new experiences, it's like maintain the like drive, but also you have to constantly be curious. I think it's a sciencey way to look at it. You know, it's like you're always forming a new hypothesis and you're always priming yourself to potentially become passionate about something else. So yeah, you're always asking questions kind of.
Yeah. And did you have a specific teacher or a few teachers that inspired you? I ask all the leaders. And one of the things that I see, no matter Democrat, Republican, young, old, is that they've had these teachers that have seen them as students. And some of them have talked about even like that their teachers came to their inauguration or their swearing ins and, or they're still in contact. Tell us a little bit about some of the teachers or one or two that are really have given you that confidence to be who you are right now.
So there's so many. I'll pick 3 if that's okay. The first one I'm going to pick is Dave Badger from Oakwood, my 9th grade bio teacher. I think you probably have also heard me speak about him, but he just was really a pivotal figure for me. And the moment that he actually kind of shifted my life was I wasn't even supposed to be listening to it, but he was having a teacher-parent conference with my mom about how I was doing in his honors bio class in 9th grade. And personally, teacher-parent conferences have always been my favorite holiday because I'm like, I get to listen to their unfiltered opinions. And I was very studious. So, typically they weren't saying like terrible things. That was fun. And I was like on the outside of the room listening to him Zoom with my mom. And he goes, your daughter understands biology like a musician understands their instrument. And that for me was just a very big thing because I'd never felt that seen like in a classroom environment before. And it also opened up science as something that I was potentially like good at, which was exciting to me, which is like, you can't really be good at science. I know that now, but like, that's what got the floodgates like opened and
I was good at it at that moment, which was a beautiful thought.
And so that was kind of the confidence that allowed me to sort of reach out in a kind of insane way to someone who would go on to be like a life mentor for me. I cold emailed this Harvard and UCLA professor who's written multiple like best-selling novels because I found out that she works at the LA Zoo. And I would have, as a 15-year-old, no reason to think that she would ever respond to me, but like the confidence that kind of Dave Badger instilled in me that like this is something that you're good at, like this is something you should pursue, like this is something that you understand on a fundamental level, allowed me to kind of crazily cold email her. And miraculously, she responded to me, which I still think is crazy. And she was like, yeah, like, like I can meet with you. Like I have 15 minutes available for coffee, like 3 months from now. And I was like, that's great. And then I went to go meet with her. And the 15-minute conversation lasted 2 hours and 30 minutes. And she ended up offering me to work in her lab. And so I've been working with her ever since. And so she was Dr. Barbara Natterson Horowitz. She's absolutely incredible. I think that when you think of the embodiment of passion, it's just her. Like when someone says the word passion, I just like see her face in my head. And she's passionate about so many things. And I think that it also has shown me that passion comes in many different forms, but she kind of just like lives life to the fullest extent. Like we would be doing lab Zooms at 6:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I'm like, you're panting. Like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, sorry, I'm also on the treadmill while I do this.
Well, some of us women have to multitask like that. I mean, some men do too, but I know a lot of women that are doing a lot of things at one time. And that sounds like what she was doing.
Yeah. And she's like getting another PhD in another topic while she's also teaching like XYZ classes because she's always wants to learn. Like I wouldn't even say that her passion is for one specific thing. I think it's just to always learn and be like on the cutting edge of like what we know and how we know it and like how we learn in general. So now it's like also with like AI space, and it's just been super, super rewarding to learn from her all the time. Not even like actual knowledge and facts about like science or like speaking at conferences, because there's a whole etiquette that I had to learn about how to do that she very gracefully coached me through, but also just learning how to learn and how to get excited about that.
What is an evolutionary biologist? Just because that's what you worked with her in that field.
Yeah. So just like kind of an example of what comparative biology is, because that's sort of the niche within evolutionary bio that we're talking about. There's this sort of consensus about human exceptionalism that I think that we don't realize how deeply ingrained is into every one of us. That we think that like humans are this like miraculous species that because we've become so advanced, we're like outside of evolution now and like we forge our own path and whatever, which is super cool. It's just not true, but it's super cool idea. But because of that, we often kind of shoot ourselves in the foot when it comes to medicine because we try to come up with all of these different solutions from scratch. And the idea of evolutionary and specifically comparative biology is evolution has existed long before us and will continue to exist forever. That's just kind of like the principle. And so instead of deciding that we are a separate thing and that we should be inventing our own solutions, let's look around and see if any other species have dealt with this selective pressure and have adapted solutions to it. And let's see what we can learn from that. So the example that I can give you is like atherosclerosis, which is just high blood pressure, but it's like the fancy term. And that's like a leading cause of death in the United States. And the idea of comparative biology is to actually look at species like the giraffe. The giraffe has really, really high blood pressure because they have to pump the blood all the way up the neck and back down. But there's no incidence of giraffes suffering from this condition. Like high blood pressure doesn't really affect their heart at all. Right. So comparative biology is like, what adaptations can we observe to the giraffe heart and the giraffe circulatory system? And then how can we take that and then apply it to human cardiology? So that's kind of like the premise.
It's amazing. And you also have a talk on Guppies in the Boardroom. Could you just say what that is? Because that's fascinating too.
Yeah. This was, again, super grateful to Dr. Natterson Horowitz for kind of letting me go on this tangent because that wasn't originally the project we were planning on doing at all. But just like a little bit of backstory, I was reading a paper about guppies and guppy behavior for some other project. And I saw this footnote about 16 pages into this super dull 31-page paper that caught my eye that said, this isn't really the focus of what we're talking about, but we noticed that when a female guppy was being like repeatedly harassed like sexually by all of the males, she would kickstart this process where in 6 weeks she would change colors, she would grow in size, and she'd start behaving more male.
So she would actually change colors, do things so she could be one of the guys.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this is so much more interesting than what I was reading about before. And so I run to Dr. Natterson Horowitz and I was like, listen, like we have to do something with this. Like this is super cool. And she goes, no, that's really cute. And I'm like, she goes, but you have to find it in at least 20 species in order for this to be like an evolutionarily significant thing. And so I spent an entire summer just looking through papers and kind of sifting through, looking for more of these footnotes. Because a lot of the times, even in other animals, like women are kind of discounted a little bit in our experiences. So I found a lot of footnotes, I collected them, and I found like 51 species in which this occurs specifically to avoid sexual harassment. And so the talk is talking about how we see this in the animal world, but we also see this a lot in women in corporate spaces. So if you look at the Boardroom as the example that I gave, just because there are studies about it, but you can also see it like in math class, where like the advanced math classes where there's like 2 girls and it's predominantly guys. You see andromorphism is the term, which just means male mimic. You see women lowering their voice, like dressing more masculine, kind of acting in a more aggressive or like assertive manner in order to fit in amongst men. And studies of women in the boardroom actually show that the company doesn't get any of the benefits of having women on the board when it's just one. And you need at least 3 women in order for women to actually be able to bring what they have to the table. And so the idea of the talk is that unlike guppies that have to masculinize in order to avoid this harassment because they don't have control of their environment, women do have control of their environment. And so we can open the doors for more women in order for us to be able to exist as we want to in our spaces. And like the big takeaway is that we're not guppies, and that feminism is no longer an altruistic movement, which is like a beautiful sentiment of like pay it forward and sisterhood, and like that always has its place. But also you should want to promote other women for yourself and for your ability to exist however you want and express yourself however you want safely in a given space. So that's kind of like the premise of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then you had one more teacher, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah. My last one, kind of in a different vein, was my English teacher, Melissa Burton, who is incredible. She's an English teacher at Oakwood, but she's also the leader and founder of the PAD Project, which is an international organization that fights period poverty and lobbies for period products being more accessible to girls all around the world, which I honestly didn't even know was an issue until I had met her and she kind of told me about what they were doing. And I was so grateful to have kind of easy access to it because she's at Oakwood and there's like a club and like leading chapter at Oakwood. And I think that one of the big things that I'm grateful to Melissa for is not only showing me kind of this initiative, and if you want to do something, like you can do it, and the how will kind of fall into place, because she was an English teacher and she made like Period End of Sentence, which is a documentary about what the PAD Project was doing, and won an Oscar for that. That's kind of crazy. So there's no one with as much drive as her, but also she accepted me for who I was. And this kind of came to light when we were trying to think of how to fundraise for the PAD Project, right? And I was like, listen, guys, like I'm not really a bake sale kind of gal. I don't know. I can't bake to save my life. My sister's a great baker, but I can't bake to save my life. I burn everything that I touch. And also I felt like the amount of time you put in it versus the amount of funds you actually raise was not sustainable, was not going to get us where we needed to go. And so I asked her if I could leverage kind of science and my science background for the PAD Project. And I feel like a lot of other people would have looked at me kind of skeptically and been like, this is not what this is about. But her eyes light up and she goes, like, if that's what you're passionate about, go for it. And so I actually used the Guppies in the Boardroom, like all of my speaking and engagement fees that I charged from that, I donated to the PAD Project, and we ended up raising like over $15,000 for the PAD Project.
Amazing.
And so it was like a beautiful intersection, I think, of two things that I'm passionate about, because you don't have to be locked in onto one sort of thing. And it was also, I think, very nice to see people afterwards start coming up with their own ideas using things that they're passionate about. So sort of allowing people to bridge different interests that they have. And I'm very grateful to her for that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And she is a special person. Okay, we're going to switch a little bit now to some rapid questions, and they should just be fun, because what I want people to now go is like, Noa's like a normal girl, even though she's like way out there with her scientific abilities and pushed herself and was courageous. You're also just another normal young woman in the world.
I also think that just before we get into the super rapid questions, the person that you're speaking to now is not the person who sat and did all of these things. Like the first time that I got an assignment from Dr. Natterson Horowitz for the lab, like you can ask my parents, like I was a nervous wreck and I didn't know how to do it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not qualified to be here. And the truth is that I probably wasn't qualified to be there because I was a 15-year-old who had taken one bio class and then got offered the job. I think that it's all about, like, if you are excited about the thing, you will forge the skills that you need in order to succeed at it. So today, like, you're like, oh, she's spoken at conferences and she knows how to write a paper and she knows how to do research. But if you go back like 3 years ago, not at all. Like the skills were 100% helped and molded by the people who helped mold and shape me as well.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What's the best advice you would give to young people right now? Just like it as a phrase, what would you tell? This is my advice. I'm 18. This is my advice to other young people.
I think it's important to always stay curious. I think that if you remain open-minded and optimistic as well, like curiosity and optimism, because that's what helped me get through the times when I didn't feel like I was like I didn't have the skills to get through something. Is like, but I do want to know how this works. You know, like I am curious about how this works. And I am curious about the way that this can be applied. And I have enough faith in myself that I think I'll be able to figure out the technical things to help me answer this big question. So I think that, and this is what I was talking about with my friend that I talked about earlier, was you always want to stay curious because you never know when you're going to find the thing that you like latch onto.
Okay. So now we're going to do the rapid questions. If you want to add more, please feel free. Favorite sound?
I really like, I think, raindrops hitting like the roof of stuff. It's just a nice little like patter, 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 patter.
I love it. Favorite color?
Green. This is like a big thing for me because trees have always been a really big thing for me in my life in general. My last name means like pine trees, like a grove of pine trees. I went to Oakwood, oak tree, Stanford, redwood tree. I was born on Tu B'Shvat, which is like a holiday celebrating trees. So trees have just been a kind of motif going on in my life. And also my eyes are green. And also my frog is green.
That's a lot of green to only be 18. But let me just ask you about the frog. The frog lives in a room or in an area with a lot of other reptiles, I understand?
Yes. So I called it the reptile room up until now, but technically frogs are amphibians, and my scientist heart hurts calling it the reptile room.
Yeah.
But ever since I was 4, I was very into lizards. I actually traded my pacifier for my first lizard. That was the only way that my parents could get me to give it up. And so since then, I've been a huge reptile fan, and I currently have about 25, give or take, reptiles in the house in the reptile room. So a lot of them.
Few the reptiles, are you taking them to Stanford?
So I'm not going to say because I'm technically not allowed to have anything in my dorm, but my frog might accidentally make an appearance if it,
What's your frog's name?
My frog's name is Matcha.
Green tea matcha?
Yeah. I went to a reptile super show, which is like this huge reptile convention that they have in Anaheim, like annually. And this is like my Black Friday. So people get super excited about like shopping and whatever and like warehouse sales. I get really excited about this one super niche event. I like get to see all of the like reptile celebrities that I'm like super into, which is just like this guy is the one who was able to prove out this gene in this snake, and this guy was da-da-da-da-da. So it was very, very cool. And this year I went, and my mom was like, okay, Noah, but obviously you're not coming back with anything because you're going to college. And I was like, no, yeah, of course, right. And I was doing so good, and I was so strong. And, I hadn't thought about buying anything. And then I see this tiny little blob of a frog. And I didn't even like Pac-Man frogs. He's a Pac-Man frog. I've always found them kind of off-putting. But I was like, he's so cute. And I call my mom and I'm like, I'm about to make a really bad decision. And I need you to love and support me anyway. And she looks at me like, are you getting a tattoo? Like, what? And I was like, no. You'll see. And she was like, no. And I already hung up and I bought the frog.
Okay. Well, hey, for some parents, that's better than a tattoo.
I mean, also, the frog's probably going to come with me to college. He's like this big. They won't even see him. But like the snakes are going to be a little bit harder to fly under the radar. Especially like I have one snake that's like about 5.5 feet long. That's how tall I am. So, that's kind of hard to sneak in. But a lot of them were also surrendered to me. So like people who couldn't take care of them anymore or figured out that a reptile is kind of a lot more work than they bargained for.
All right. Well, we'll wonder what happens for that next 4 years for your reptiles friends.
I mean, snakes only eat once a month, so I'm planning on being home that often anyway. And I'm indoctrinating my 10-year-old brothers now into feeding my lizards for me.
Very good. That's what they should be doing. Favorite scent or smell?
Pine trees. Like I like pine.
Who's your biggest cheerleader?
I would say my mom. But I think that cheerleader is not an accurate word. I don't know what the English word for it is, but it's kind of like, how you have soldiers who are fighting a battle, and then you have all the people who take care of the soldiers and like supply them with food and water, and like the medics who like take care of them when they're injured, and like they aren't actually the ones fighting the battle, but they're helping the soldiers fight the battle. That's what my mom is for me. So she's not just cheering me on. She's also like supporting me emotionally and obviously physically because like I live in her house and stuff and all of that stuff. So my mom is more of that. As far as cheerleaders go, I want to say my dog is a really big cheerleader for me.
What's your dog?
I have 2 dogs, Tilly and Waldo. Waldo is just kind of a weighted blanket in dog form, but, like, I think, like, Tilly wants to see me succeed.
I love it.
She's yeah.
Okay, well, you are the first person who's had a dog that was their biggest cheerleader, and it's a great answer.
I mean, she and I are like this. No one is ever more excited to see me than she is.
I love it. Okay, food. What's your favorite food?
This is really hard, and actually I had it yesterday, and it's it's cheese pizza from this kind of, like, sketchy pizza place next to, like, I think it's on Fairfax. It's called Pizza World. They're, like, sanitation grade, like, the letter is a B. So, like, there's not 100% at all like this place. And the floor is kinda sticky. When you, like, step on it, your shoe sticks for just a bit, and all the counters are but their pizza's really, 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 really good. That was the first pizza place I ever went to as, like, a kid, and so I went yesterday because I was like, "I need to go at least once before I leave for college."
Favorite kind of music that you listen to?
I don't know what this genre is called, but I can give you, like, some examples. So, like, Eternity by Alex Warren, Work Song by Hozier, any of the Hades Town set list, and there's this new concept album for this musical about the Odyssey called Epic, and the vibe that it gives is just, like, you zoom out of an individual person, and you have these, like, drums or whatever, and it's, like, this kind of ethereal feeling that makes you feel like you're a part of something a lot bigger than yourself, and I don't know what you call that genre of music, but that's probably my favorite one because it makes me feel like I'm a part of some, like, How to Train Your Dragon, like, riding in a horde of whatever. Like, it just makes me very happy.
Good. And how about a book? You have a favorite book?
So this is kind of like YA sort of, but I really like Red Rising, just like the trilogy. I read it a while ago. My friend described it to me as the Hunger Games on steroids, and I really liked the Hunger Games, so I was like, okay, I'm down for this. And it's about this kind of, like, space hierarchy and about, like, dismantling that, and also the moral costs of, like, 100% throwing yourself into a goal, and do means justify ends. And I feel like even though it's technically sci-fi and maybe feels very distant to a lot of people, the metaphors really track. And also the prose is really beautiful. I just think Pierce Brown does a wonderful job with that.
All right. Well, that's a good one. Never heard that one either. Okay. Favorite household chore?
This one is kind of one that I created for myself, so it doesn't really count, but just reptile room chores, because when you have that many animals together, you have to clean a lot of stuff. And you have a lot of different reptile room chores. So I guess my favorite one is feeding everybody, because you just
This is them little frozen mice.
So for the snakes, yeah, I don't feed live just because obviously the mouse doesn't want to go down without a fight. And there are a lot of incidents where mice will actually injure your snake. And I'm like, I don't need to subject them to that. They're not in the wild. So, like, they should get the perks. So I have to boil the mouse or, like, the rat so that it defrosts. And then I have to dry it off because my snakes are picky. So they won't eat it if it's wet. And then I have tongs because I'm not touching this with my hands. And I kind of have to, like, swing it a little so that they think it's alive, so that they feel like they're hunting. And so that whole ordeal takes at least an hour. But then all of the lizards and stuff, they eat worms. And the worms are alive. So I have also tongs, and I have to dip them in a bunch of calcium supplements so that they get all of their different vitamins. And then, feed everybody. And they are never more excited. Like, they know when it's feeding day. Like, they have a routine locked down.
Okay, well, that is another chore no one has ever said was their favorite chore. One more in this group is, what is Noah's superpower?
That's a good question. I think that honestly for me, it's the ability to think clearly and logically in stressful circumstances. This kind of, I think the moments that I've felt this in my life was like, this was a while ago. I was like 8, or I think I was 7 actually. And our family was, like, in a car accident. All of us together were in, like, a car, and we were driving, and there's a car accident. And all of the doors are, like, locked, and the airbags, like, engage or whatever, and there's, like, smoke, and, like, none of us really know what's going on. My mom, we later found out, like, shattered her right hand completely, so she couldn't get out. And my dad, like, all the doors were locked, so he couldn't really get there. And I don't really know what came over me in that moment, but my little brothers who were like 1 year old around, I think they were like both 1 year old, were crying. And so I just came to them and I just started singing to them to calm them down, like their favorite song. And then when the firefighters came, like slowly unbuckling them while singing and like handing them out through the windows because the doors still wouldn't open. And so that was like a moment where it was like, you just kind of lock in. And
Nice.
even though it's a super stressful situation, another time, which is maybe less poetic, but I'm grateful that I was able to keep a clear head on this one, was I was horseback riding because I used to kind of horseback ride like professionally. And so I was taking this horse over a jump, and the jump was like 3 feet. So it was a warm-up jump. Like it wasn't anything serious. And the horse doesn't do it. He pulls to the side and I stop him. I look at my trainer and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what do you want me to do with the horse? And he was like, you can't stop now because he'll learn that not listening works and he gets out of doing the thing. So I approach the jump again and he pulls a little harder this time. And I look at my trainer and he goes, you got to do it again. The third time, I get him over the jump, but the horse is really mad that I got him over the jump. And so he starts bolting. Context that I wish I had known before I'd gotten on this horse. He was an ex-race horse. So he really got into it. And he's running faster than I've ever ridden a horse before. And I try like stopping him and he won't stop. And he starts bucking, which just means like he's trying to like kick me off of his back. And I understand, Noah, this horse is going to throw you off eventually. You get to decide now where to fall. All of this is happening in real time while I'm on the horse. And so I start kind of in my head doing the math. I'm like, if I fall outward, I'm going to break my rib on the fence. If I fall inward, he's going to kick my face in. If I fall backward, he's also going to kick my face in. And if I fall right in front of him, he's going to run me over. So where do I want to fall? Again, all this is happening in like 45 seconds real time, but for me, like slows down kind of. And so eventually I'm like, best thing I can do is throw myself diagonally over his outside shoulder when we get to the corner of the arena where there's this tiny pile of sand where I can like land. And so I throw myself over. Granted, I did miscalculate a little bit, kind of the angle at which I was approaching it. So I did end up with a concussion, but I could have ended up with fractured bones and stuff. So I feel like all things said, and I was also proud of my analysis in that moment, to be honest, because it all happened very fast.
My last question, and I think I already know a lot of the answer, but what does joy mean to you and what brings you joy?
Well, my dad is into philosophy now. And so he talks to me a lot about philosophy, which honestly, half of it I don't understand, but that's cool. And he was asking me, no, what do you think is like the ultimate goal of like everything? And, we're like talking. And at first I'm like, like you want to have a successful career. And so a lot of people like they want to have a family and they want to, and he's like, yeah, but what is all of that for? And so we reached this consensus, like the ultimate goal that everyone is working towards is happiness. Happiness is the only thing that you're not like, okay, but what's the point of that? Like happiness is this thing that we're all kind of striving for. And so I think that like joy to me is anything that I'm not doing for the sake of something else per se, like something that like I do it and I'm already kind of there. Like it makes me happy. That's not to say that you shouldn't invest in things that suck at the moment that are going to bring you joy long term. That's kind of just a part of living. But when people ask me like what makes me happy, it's probably not going to be those moments that come to mind. More so like sat and stared at my snake for like an hour yesterday, and she was just looking at me and I was looking at her. And I was like, I'm like very content right now in this moment. Like I have reached the ultimate goal, even though it's like short-term happiness, but like I was very happy. Or I'm playing with my brothers and I lost to them very badly at Fortnite or Mario Kart because I'm a really terrible video gamer. And, like they're making fun of me. And I'm like, I'm happy in this moment right now. Like we're all joking around together and I'm very happy. Or I'm working on this like science project and something just hit me like a different way that I could do this or a better way that I could do this. And I get like excited. And then I realize in that moment, like I'm very happy. So I think it's a bunch of little epiphanies together where it's like, you realize you're not doing this for the sake of something greater. It's just the very thing that you're doing that brings you joy.
Okay, well, first, I want to say thank you. This was a joyful and really interesting conversation. I learned a lot, and I think everyone else who's listening is learning a lot. And, one of the things I was thinking as I end is like, you talk about curiosity so much and that you need to stay curious. And you talk about your passion. And the one thing that I will say about you, seeing where you've come from and as you go now into Stanford and continue to do this work, but figure out where it brings you, is that you're a very courageous person. And I think that one of the things that really stands out for me, especially with young people, is that it's hard to be courageous. We live in a world where there is so much anti-ism and hard times and people feeling like insecure. But your courageousness and your courage to do what a lot of young people wouldn't be doing, perhaps, but to be there is inspiring to others. So whenever they find their passion and whatever they are curious about, that they look at it and they come from this internal place with a lot of courage. So I just want to say thank you.
I was talking to my younger sister about this actually, because she's kind of starting to think more so about like college and what she might be interested in. And she was like, yeah, but I feel like none of my friends are going through this process or thinking about this process right now. And I think that the huge thing that I realized and that made my high school experience profoundly better is that it is cool to be passionate about stuff. Like, I think that there's this kind of pressure now and the sort of largely like societally imposed like nonchalance where it's like, yeah, like kind of go with the flow, or like, I don't really care what happens because like caring is cringy and like passion is like whatever. But eventually people understand, and this is going to hit them, whether it be in a month or years later down the road when like the nonchalance isn't cool anymore and they're they're deeply unhappy with themselves. Like, being passionate about things is really, really cool. Like, the coolest people that I know and the people that I most enjoy being around are people who are excited about something. Doesn't matter what it is. But those are just people that are fun to be around because it energizes you and it makes you feel very alive and very human. And passion is like a fundamental aspect of humanity. You know, I think I'm not super human exceptionalist like we were talking about earlier. I don't think humans are this miraculous thing that sprung out of whatever. But I think that one of the luxuries of being human is that we get to be passionate about things. Like, that is a very human quality. And I think that that's something that people just need to embrace. Because I know that for myself, like, evolutionary bio is probably not what people want to talk about when I pull up to a party. I found that out in high school. You know, when I start talking about purine metabolisms and people are like, yeah, but there's a song playing in the background, we should probably dance to it. And there's places for both. But I just think that in general, I hope that people know, and especially like I think this would have really helped me to know, like, as a kid kind of going through middle school and high school, is like, you being passionate about something when you feel like no one else is passionate about stuff, like, you're just way ahead of the curve. And people are going to catch up to you and you're going to already be like blossoming and thriving as people start to kind of do what you've already been doing. So if you are lucky enough to have found and forged a passion for something, pursue it. That's definitely not something that you should feel like you have to stifle for anybody.
On that, thank you. Good luck. Enjoy Stanford.
So what?
And I hope that you and Matcha have a beautiful experience there. And I will look forward to catching up with you soon. And thank you for joining us at the Capital Coffee Connection podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
But one day I'm going to show up at Stanford and you're going to buy me a cup of coffee.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi, it's Liz. Please join me for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Remember to hit subscribe to get an alert when a new episode is live and for exclusive content. Ciao.